October when we reached the basin. The sky was fading, a gradient of deepening purple that made the ridges look almost like black silhouettes against a dim horizon. Mason drove slowly, tires crunching over the sandy two-track that cut through scattered sage and brittle brush. Jay sat beside him, scanning the terrain with a mix of caution and curiosity, fingers occasionally tracing the lines of the map on their lap. I sat in the back, the audio recorder balanced on my knees, red light blinking softly, capturing the ambient hum of the desert as we moved. We had been warned about the isolation out here, but nothing could have prepared us for the tangible silence that pressed in from all directions. Every foot of ground we crossed felt deliberate, measured, like the desert itself was watching our movement. Occasionally, a small animal would rustle a brush, or the distant cry of a bird would pierce the quiet, but mostly there was nothing. The kind of nothing that makes you listen to your own heartbeat and wonder if it is loud enough for someone or something to hear. Mason broke the quiet first. "Looks normal," he said, though his voice carried a tension that betrayed his attempt at casual observation. Jay glanced at him. "Normal doesn't feel like this." The map indicated the path forward, but the basin stretched wide, flat, endless, and as the sun dipped lower, shadows crept like liquid across the dry ground. We stopped briefly at a small ridge that overlooked the basin. The view was expansive, almost unnervingly perfect. "We'll set camp just past the wash," Mason decided, pointing toward a shallow depression where the ground softened and water would have pooled in rare rains. Jay nodded, already scanning for natural cover for the tents, while I adjusted the recorder to pick up the slight wind and the distant, almost imperceptible rustle of the terrain. The first step into the basin proper was immediate immersion into that oppressive silence. The sound of our boots on sand seemed impossibly loud, each step echoing against distant ridges as if the land itself amplified our presence. I felt the familiar prickling in the back of my neck, the sort of premonition that grows in places where the world feels like it could change in a blink. Mason noticed it too. "Keep moving," he said softly, but even his words seemed to vibrate against the air. A few minutes later, we heard it. Not close, not immediate, but unmistakable. A voice, just a single syllable, a casual "hey" floating over the basin from a distance we could not measure. Jay froze, eyes narrowing. "That came from over there," they said, pointing vaguely. Mason frowned. "Could be someone camping out. Could be an echo." He wasn't convincing even to himself. I stayed silent, straining to detect any shift in the air, any indication of movement beyond the natural sway of the desert brush. The sound came again, identical, almost a repetition. "Hey." The tone, the cadence, the inflection, every nuance matched the first call perfectly. Mason's jaw tightened. Not a recording, too precise, same pitch, same breath. I swallowed hard. That was when the first true cold seeped into my gut. Not fear exactly, but the sensation of a system failing, the subtle intuition that something in the natural order was wrong. We didn't answer, we just moved, keeping pace with each other, backs tense, heads alert. The basin seemed endless, and as dusk deepened, the shadows hardened, transforming the land into a stark, black and white landscape. When we reached the small clearing for camp, the first stars were already visible. We ate quickly, the quiet pressing down on us so heavily the talking felt like defiance. Mason and Jay handled the practical setup, tents pitched, trail cameras installed. One camera faced the basin, angled to monitor approach from the ruins. Another was set lower, near a narrow wash that funneled any movement toward camp. We didn't set cameras because we expected a threat. We set them because if there was a person or something interfering, we wanted a record. Jay also arranged a simple perimeter marker, a light dusting of flour around the outer edge of camp. Footprints would be obvious in the powder, lingering long enough in dry conditions to matter. By nightfall, we sat in darkness, headlamps off, letting the desert settle around us. At first, the familiar noises of wind, twigs tapping, and distant wildlife filled the void. Mason checked the wind gauge occasionally, a mechanical gesture to occupy his hands. Around 9:30, a new sound emerged from the direction of the ruins. Not a voice, but a clack, metallic, deliberate. Footsteps followed shortly after, slow, measured, as if aware of our presence. Jay's posture changed instantly. No one reached for a weapon, but the tension was unmistakable. The footsteps stopped. Then, a voice from the darkness. Jay's voice, clear, calling my name exactly as they do when genuine attention is needed. Evan. I didn't move. Mason whispered, "No kidding." The voice repeated, slightly closer, same cadence. My brain raced through options in a stuttering torrent of decisions, but I did nothing. Jay whispered, "Don told you. Don told you." Footsteps resumed, moving through the brush, deliberate. The voice shifted next, taking Mason's tone. "Come here." Mason's laugh choke was quiet. That's not even what I sound like at my best. The mimicry was wrong in the subtle way that betrays intelligence. Footsteps ceased again. Silence dominated. We endured the long night. The cold drove us tense. Dawn approached, and with first light, we examined the trail cameras and perimeter markers. The prints were not human, not bootprints, not equine. They were elongated, with front hands pressing deeper than the rear, testing balance unlike a dog. The cameras revealed a figure, malformed, moving close enough to study us, but not attack. The sun had fully set by the time we finished setting the perimeter markers and adjusting the trail cameras. The basin was now a stark monochrome landscape, every ridge and rock casting long, jagged shadows under the stars. Mason crouched by the ridge camera, checking its angle one last time. "Should catch anyone coming from the ruins," he said, voice low. Jay nodded, scanning the distant horizon. "Or anything. Doesn't have to be human." I tightened my grip on the audio recorder, the faint red light pulsing steadily as if in sync with my heartbeat. We settled in our tents shortly after, but sleep was evasive. The desert has a way of keeping you alert without making a sound. Every brush of wind against the tent fabric sounded like a hand reaching in. Every distant rustle became a threat. At around 10 p.m., the sound came. Footsteps in the brush, slow, deliberate, measured. Someone or something was moving toward us, aware we were here. Jay stiffened. Mason and I exchanged a glance, silently agreeing on the unspoken rule: do not engage. The footsteps stopped near our camp. Then a voice came from the darkness. Not casual, not playful, but precise. "Evan." Jay's head snapped toward the sound. "Not me," they whispered. Mason's response was tense. "No kidding." The voice repeated a few seconds later, slightly closer, matching cadence and inflection. My own name, spoken where it shouldn't be, triggered that system check in my gut. Fight, flight, or freeze. My brain ran through possibilities at impossible speed. I froze. Silence was the only option. Jay whispered again, "Don told you. Don told you." Footsteps resumed, moving carefully through the brush. The voice then shifted to Mason's tone. "Come here." Mason let out a quiet sound, half laugh, half choke. "That's not even my voice on a good day," he said under his breath. But the imitation was close enough to betray intent, precise enough to feel wrong. Footsteps paused once more. Silence enveloped the camp like a living thing. By midnight, the desert had fully claimed the night. Every sound amplified, every shadow lengthened. My tent trembled slightly from the wind, and each gust felt like a hand brushing the fabric. Then, unmistakably, something moved along the seam of my tent. Not a paw, not a bump, but a deliberate drag. I held my breath. The movement paused near the zipper. Then, a soft exhale, fogging the air just outside the fabric. I froze as my own voice spoke from beyond the tent wall. "Evan, get up." Calm, precise, exact. Not my imagination, not the desert. Jay reacted simultaneously, whispering that the sound wasn't theirs. Mason's hand hovered over the tent flap, silent tension radiating from him. The figure, or intelligence, moved away through the brush shortly after, unhurried, deliberate. At first light, we examined the perimeter. Tracks led from the wash, circled the tents, paused near mine, and continued toward the truck, ending abruptly on hard ground. Not human, not canine, not equine. The proportions were off, the toes too distinct, the pressure uneven. Two prints showed front appendages pressing deeper than the rear, as if testing balance, something animals don't do. The trail cameras told a similar story. The lower camera triggered dozens of times overnight. At first glance, false triggers, wind, moving brush, but scrolling through the frames revealed a figure low to the ground, shoulder height inconsistent with any known animal. Its head slightly elongated, limbs straight, pale eyes facing forward, human-like. It paused, rose slightly, then dropped again. Smear on the lens suggested it brushed past, but no SD card remained. Mason noted, "Okay, that's a person." Jay disagreed, citing the missing card as unusual for a human intruder. The ridge camera caught only two triggers, one false, one at 3:06 a.m., a pale vertical smear at the far edge of the frame, possibly a watcher. We didn't speak, only packed quickly and efficiently, acting calm to preserve composure. Our plan, leave the basin, reposition closer to a main dirt road, and conduct a daylight sweep of the ruins for additional evidence. Approaching the ruins from the north, shadows behind us, the basin appeared normal in daylight. Relief tempted us, but the water trough revealed fresh human boot prints. Mason recognized them instantly. "Those are mine," he said, genuinely unsettled. The tread, the nick on the heel, the spacing, all matched his boots exactly. We believed him. Deception would have required effort and performance beyond his nature. The prints were fresh, reinforcing the impossibility of an explanation rooted in prank or mistake. After confirming Mason's boot prints, we felt a mixture of vindication and unease. The tracks ended abruptly on the hardpan, as if the person or entity had stepped onto a rock shelf and simply vanished. three of us stood there, squinting in the harsh sunlight, staring at the empty space where the footprints had ended. My mind immediately recalled the SR reports, the official sterile language describing tracks that terminated suddenly, as if the earth itself swallowed the walker. Jay's attention shifted, pulled away from the prints to the air itself. "Do you smell that?" they asked softly. I inhaled carefully. There was a faint, unusual odor, unlike anything in the desert. Not rot, not campfire smoke, not sage. It was a damp, animal-like smell, wrong for the arid basin, like wet hair in a closed room. Mason sniffed and said, "Like a dog caught in the rain." Jay corrected, "But it hasn't rained." The scent seemed to emanate from the mine opening. I stepped cautiously toward the threshold, staying in the sunlight, careful not to cross into the mine. From the darkness inside, a soft scraping noise, not rockfall, not collapse, more like a shifting weight. Then came a voice, calm, almost conversational. "Boys, don't do that," said Dawn. My mouth dried instantly. Hearing Dawn's voice in person this trip was impossible. Mason and Jay had never spoken to him, couldn't have mimicked him. Mason's head snapped toward me, silently seeking permission to act. Jay whispered, "That's not a person." The voice repeated, identical in tone, "Don't do that." I backed away without turning my back, silent, cautious, no questions, no interaction, no invitation. We moved swiftly to open ground, toward the truck and the camp. As the first real sense of urgency surged, we knew we had to leave. Mason drove with tight hands on the wheel, scanning the track ahead. Jay monitored the mirrors, silent, tense. I held the audio recorder, replaying the voice captured outside my tent. The playback was chilling. Footsteps, wind, breathing, and Dawn's voice, clear, undistorted, perfectly replicated. Beneath it, a second layer murmured in rapid, unintelligible tones, as if speech was being attempted through fabric. I replayed it twice, then shut it off. Evidence was sufficient. Repetition was hazardous. Our plan remained simple. Reach a more traveled road, reassess, and if anything escalated, go straight to town. 40 minutes into the drive, the track changed. Where there had been a gentle curve around a low outcrop, a deep wash now sliced across the path. No evidence of rain or flash flood. The cut was fresh, sharp-edged, and sudden. Mason checked and said, "We can cross, might scrape." Jay suggested a detour, but risked losing half a day. I instructed, "Cross carefully." Mason constructed a small rock ramp, eased the truck down. Suspension groaned, tires gripped loose sand, stomachs lifted briefly before we ascended the far side with only minor scrapes. Minutes later, the radio crackled. No communication was expected. Jay had left it on scan. Mason's voice came, "Stop the truck." He jerked as though slapped. It wasn't him. The signal repeated. Jay turned the radio off completely. Engine noise suddenly overwhelmed us. Mason didn't stop. He accelerated. Behind us, the basin was empty. Dust and distance only. Ahead, the road presented a sudden obstacle, a dead animal laid deliberately across the two-track. At first glance, a mule deer.
Approaching, it became clear it was a coyote, arranged unnaturally, limbs bent, head turned slightly, mouth open. Jay warned, "Don't get out." Mason crawled past, tires on firm ground, avoiding punctures. The damp fur smell hit through cracked windows. Its head twitched slightly. Eyes remained open. I did not look again.
For the next hour, the road stretched through low hills and open flats. Normal life resumed superficially. Distant cattle, a lone ranch truck, corral remains. Relief tried to return, yet Jay whispered, "We're not going the right way." Mason argued. Jay pointed out missed junctions on the map. The two-track continued faintly through indistinguishable terrain. Basins erase your sense of progress. GPS confirmed the impossible. We had returned near the ruins, not at them, within the same basin grid. Mason asserted, "We've been driving east." Jay considered, "Unless in circles." Frustration mounted silently. We stopped the truck. Hard reset. No electronics, no assumptions. We scanned the landscape. Ridges, peaks, familiar silhouettes. Nevada's geometry allowed recognition without names. Mason moved a few steps, hands on hips, eyes sweeping for hidden markers. Jay suggested a larger route to exit, away from the same two-track. Agreement was silent. Mason drove with GPS on dash, map open, instincts suppressed. 2 hours of slow, meticulous navigation brought us to a broader dirt road, graded within the last year. Finally, a semblance of control returned. Mid-afternoon revealed another camp. Small setup, tall brush, one RV, a pickup, folding chairs, a fire ring. Occupied looking, but no visible humans. Mason slowed. Jay refused engagement. Social contact was hazardous. Passing the RV, curtain shifted. A woman's voice called out, "Help!" Mason hesitated. Jay hardened, "No." The call repeated, now a child's voice, "Dad!" Emotion bypassed logic. The voice ran parallel to the road's brush line, but no child was visible. Half a mile later, the voices ceased. Pavement brought physical relief. At the motel in Tonopah, we unloaded gear cautiously, inspected for tampering. Driver's side smear, bed cover scratch, slightly rotated fuel can. Evidence subtle but undeniable. I replayed the audio in my room, under headphones. Dawn's voice layered with the faint, intelligible murmur. Then footsteps outside, soft drag, voice, "Evan, get up." Identical to the tent incident. Footsteps receded. Motel life continued overlaid. Security measures applied. Deadbolt, dresser against the door. Morning, Mason recounted scratching at 2 a.m., voice calling his full name, out-of-state mother. Jay observed tall, motionless shape outside curtain. Nothing remained when eyes opened. We left at dawn, diner meeting with Don. Audio playback revealed his voice. He confirmed, "That's my voice." Explanation, a person skilled enough to manipulate sound, or something older, mimicking human voices, targeting familiarity. SD card stolen intentionally, witness avoidance. Desert basins have always been hazardous. Sometimes calling out invites responses best left unheard. We left the diner with a tense quiet settling in the truck. Nevada's sun was high, harsh, casting long, sharp shadows across the pale dirt. Mason drove with both hands tight on the wheel, his eyes flicking constantly between the road and the GPS, cross-checking the subtle rises and dips of the basin. Jay remained rigid in the passenger seat, scanning every shadow, every ridge, every movement in the distance, ready to catch anything that didn't belong. I sat in the back, gripping the audio recorder like it was a lifeline, listening repeatedly to the voices we had captured, the layers of murmurs, the clarity of Dawn's voice, the uncanny replication of our names from nowhere. The two-track leading to the main dirt road demanded slow, meticulous attention. Every turn, every bend, every slight variation in the dirt required verification against landmarks, the ridges, and the sun's position. Basins like this are treacherous for perception. An hour's drive could feel like mere minutes, or worse, as if you hadn't moved at all. The GPS confirmed our fear. We were circling near the ruins, trapped in the same unbroken grid of emptiness. Mason's frustration was quiet but palpable. "I did not drive in circles," he said, slapping the steering wheel lightly. No one replied. The manipulation of perception, subtle and invisible, pressed on our nerves. Roads seemed to shift, basins erased progress, and the air carried voices only we could hear. We stopped, scanning the landscape. Nevada's ridges offer a kind of memory, silhouettes you can navigate by. Mason walked a few paces, scanning, hands on hips, searching for something to make sense of the impossible. Jay suggested taking a broader, more traveled route rather than the two-track. I nodded. Agreement was wordless. We had learned to defer instinct in favor of control. 2 hours passed in this cautious crawl, cross-checking every bend, pausing to verify landmarks, keeping the sun's angle in mind. We finally reached a wider dirt road, graded within the past year. Relief began to return, though tenuous. Then, off the road, we saw another camp, small, tucked near taller brush, with an old RV, a pickup, folding chairs, and a fire ring. Everything indicated occupation, yet no one was visible. Mason slowed. Jay immediately said, "Do not stop." After a day of voices, stolen SD cards, and impossible phenomena, stopping near an unknown camp felt reckless. As we passed, a curtain shifted. A woman's voice cried out, "Help." Mason hesitated. Jay hardened his tone, "No." The voice repeated, then a child's voice, uncertain, called, "Dad." Logic bypassed instantly. Mason made a soft, broken noise in his throat. Jay whispered, "It's fishing." The child's voice seemed to move along the brush line, always close but invisible. Half a mile later, the voices ceased. Pavement ahead offered a tangible relief. At the motel lot in Tonopah, under harsh yellow lights, we parked and unloaded carefully. Gear and personal checks revealed subtle signs of tampering, faint smears on the driver's handle, scratches on the bed cover latch, slightly displaced fuel cans. Enough to confirm we were not alone. Up in my motel room, headphones on, I replayed the recorder. Dawn's voice was clear, layered with the faint, unintelligible murmurs. Footsteps followed, soft, dragging. My own voice called out, calm and practical, "Evan, get up." I froze, listening. Footsteps retreated. Life carried on around us, TVs, laughter, stacked atop the impossible. I secured the door with deadbolt and dresser, tension held tight. Morning arrived. We met Mason and Jay in the lot, comparing notes. Mason had heard scratching around 2 a.m., a voice calling his full name, his mother, out of state. Jay had seen a tall, motionless figure outside the curtain, gone when they blinked. We met Dawn at the diner. His sharp eyes noted every detail. I played the audio. "That's my voice," he said. Dawn explained the possibilities, a human skilled in sound manipulation, or something older, learning human voices to lure and manipulate. He noted the SD card theft as deliberate, witness avoidance. Basins like these are dangerous. Calling out can summon responses better left unheard. A subtle tap of his finger emphasized the warning: respect silence. We left, carrying the weight of evidence, voices, tracks, and the smell of damp fur. Desert basins may seem simple, but they preserve memory, echoes, and presence invisible to casual observation. Then he said, "Too casual. Somebody camping out there." No answer. We kept moving, not running, but not strolling either. Our backs felt louder than our faces. Half a minute later, we heard it again. "Hey!" Same tone, same distance, same placement in the air, as if it originated from a fixed point. This time, Mason stopped and said, "That's the same exact sound, same pitch, same breath." That's when the first real chill hit my gut. Not fear exactly, more like a system check failing. In the normal world, two identical sounds a minute apart are either a person doing it deliberately or a repeating sound source. A person could do it, but if it were a person, why not show themselves? Why not say more? Why not at least move? We didn't respond. We just continued forward. The basin stretched long, and dusk fell while we walked. When light fades there, it doesn't slide, it drops. Temperature falls, shadows sharpen, and the landscape looks like a black and white photograph. We reached camp as the first stars appeared. Dinner was quick. Conversation was minimal because talking feels like arguing with the night, and none of us were ready for that. Afterward, we set up the trail cameras, one on the ridge facing the basin, angled toward the ruins approach. Another lower, near a narrow wash funneling anything moving toward camp. Not for monsters, but if someone was messing with us, I wanted a photo. Jay suggested a perimeter indicator, a light dusting of flour in arcs around camp. Flour shows footprints clearly and lasts long in dry conditions. It's an old trick, makes you feel less helpless. Then we did the other planned thing. We sat, headlamps off, darkness settled, listening. At first, the desert made small noises, a twig brushing another, a faint scuff like a mouse, distant canopy creaks in the light wind. Mason checked the wind gauge now and then, mainly to give his hands something to do. The wind held steady, low. Around 9:30, a sound came from the ruins, not a voice, but a clack, metal on metal. Could be tin shifting, could be an animal stepping. At about 10, we heard footsteps through the brush. Not close, 50 yards, slow, deliberate, the way something moves when it knows you're there. Jay stiffened. They didn't reach for a weapon, just stillness, the kind you get when listening through your own blood. The footsteps stopped. We waited. 1 minute. 2. The desert stretches moments. Then a voice came from the darkness, not "Hey" this time, but Jay's voice. Evan. My name, flat, direct, the way Jay uses when calling for real attention, not playful, not drawn out. Jay's head snapped toward the sound. I didn't move. I didn't answer. I stared into darkness. "Not me," Jay whispered. Mason's voice, low, tight. No kidding. Seconds later, the voice came again, closer. Same tone, same cadence, slight upward lift at the end, like a question. Hearing your own name where it shouldn't be makes your brain stutter through options. Yell, shine a light, stand. I did nothing. Dawn told you, whispered Jay. The footsteps resumed, slow, measured. The voice shifted, it became Mason's. "Mason, come here." Mason half laughed, half choked. That's not even what I sound like on my best day. But it was close enough. Pitch, roughness, clipped consonants. Footsteps stopped again. Nothing else for minutes. No attack, just the knowledge something had studied us, then backed off like taking notes. Cold drove tension. We agreed on a simple plan. Check cameras and perimeter at first light. If anything escalated, leave. Curiosity isn't worth dying for. Sleep was poor. Desert excels at keeping you awake without action. Every wind touch on the tent fabric became imagined hands. After midnight, I woke to brushing along the tent seam. Not a bump or pawing, slow drag. Near the zipper, a soft exhale, close enough to fog the fabric. Then, my voice from beyond the tent. "Evan, get up." Quiet, steady narration tone. I didn't answer. A long moment passed, heart pounding, blood roaring. Then, from the other side of camp, Jay sat up. No, clear, like stopping a drunk friend. Breathing outside ceased. Something moved through the brush, unhurried. At dawn, we checked the flour. Tracks, not many, not messy. One set entered from the wash, circled tents, paused near mine, then moved to the truck, disappearing into hard ground. Not human, not boots, not horse, distorted, canine-like. 2 prints suggested front hands pressed more than rear, shifting weight unnaturally. Photos taken, measurements compared, matched prints by the trough. Cameras next. Lower camera triggered dozens of times. Initially, wind or brush. Scrolling through, my throat tightened. At 2:12 a.m., a low-to-ground shape moved in frame. Too tall for coyote, proportions wrong, head slightly long, legs too straight, eyes pale, forward-facing, human-like shine. 2:13, closer, lean toward lens, patchy fur like mange. 2:14, upright enough for shoulder hint. 2:15, dark frame with bright blur across lens. Camera ceased triggering, housing intact, lens smeared with oily substance, SD card slot open, card gone. Hostile intelligence, not animal. Mason, okay, that's a person. Jay shook their head. A human would have taken the whole camera. I said, deliberate. Ridge camera intact, only 2 triggers, false wind. 3:06 a.m. photo. Pale shape at frame's edge, vertical smear, watching camp. Daylight grew, silent packing. Calm is a tool. Hand steady, sleeping bag rolled efficiently. Plan, leave Basin, reposition closer to main road. Curiosity stubborn, daylight window allowed a final sweep of ruins and wash. Approaching ruins from north, sun behind us, shadows can hide movement. Water trough, fresh boot prints, circled to mine edge, returned. Mason crouched. Those are my boots. Jay, no. Mason, exact tread, nick on outer heel from rebar months prior. Fresh. He hadn't been there last night. Confirmed. Then came the mine. Evan, Mason, Jay followed. Footprints ended on rock shelf, vanished. 3 adults, broad daylight, staring where tracks ceased. Jay, do you smell that? Faint, unfamiliar, damp hair, wet animal, wrong for dry desert. Smelled from mine. Stepping closer, careful, threshold intact. Scrape from inside, not rockfall, weight shift. Voice from darkness, dawn, boys, don't do that. Mouth dry, tongue stuck. Dawn's voice, only heard on the phone briefly that trip. Mason, Jay had never met him. Mason's head snapped toward me. Jay whispered, that's not a person. Voice repeated, same tone, don't do that. I backed away. No words, no questions. Moved to open ground, sighting truck and camp. Urgency surged. Mason drove tightly on wheel, eyes scanning track. Jay passenger, silent, mirrors. I back seat, audio recorder on lap, red light glowing. Playback, footsteps, breathing, faint wind. Dawn's voice clear, with underlayer murmur, unintelligible, fast like speech through fabric. Replayed twice, shut off. Evidence enough. Plan, get to traveled road, reassess. 2-track obstacle 40 minutes later. Wash cut deep. New, sharp edges. Mason, no. Jay, wasn't here. Mason, we didn't miss it. Cross carefully. Minor scrape. Suspension groaned. Tires loose. Then climbed far side. 10 minutes later, radio crackle. Mason's voice. Stopped the truck. Not him. Crackle repeated. Mason's voice. Stop. Jay turned off radio. Silence. Engine loud. Basin behind. Empty. Road ahead. Dead animal. Arranged. Not gore. Limbs bent unnaturally. Head turned toward us. Damp fur smell hit. Eyes opened. Eye forward. Didn't look again. Next hour. Uneventful. Low hills. Flats. Distant corral. Cattle. Ranch truck. Relief tried to return. Jay, we're not going right way. Mason, we are. Jay's map. Junction missed. 2-track continued. Faint, consistent. All same terrain. Basins erase progress sense. GPS, coordinates near ruins, miles within same basin grid. Mason, we've been driving east. J, or circles. Mason slaps wheel, frustrated. I did not drive in circles. Silent reset. Nevada landscape recognition. Mason, scanning. J, different route. Main dirt road. I nodded. Map on lap. GPS fixed to dash. 2 hours navigating slowly. Verifying bends. Sun position. Mid-afternoon. Broader dirt road. Graded within year. Saw other camp. Old RV. Pickup. Chairs. Fire ring. No people visible. J. No. Passed silently. Curtain shifted. Voice. Help. Mason foot off gas. J. No. Voice repeated. Human. Child voice. Dad. Mason broke sound. J. Fishing. Voice ran along brush line. Vanished. Pavement near dusk. Relief tangible. Motel Tonopah. Mason shut truck. Hands on wheel. Distrustful. J. We're done. I. We're done. Gear unloaded. Ticks and cuts checked. Truck inspected. Faint door smear. Bed latch scratch. Fuel can rotated. Evidence we weren't alone. Recorder replayed. Dawn line. Underlayer murmur rhythmic. Unintelligible. Hallway drag sound outside door. Voice. Ethan, get up. Same phrase. No response. Locked deadbolt. Dresser barricade. Morning. Parking lot. Notes compared. Mason. Scratching on window. 2 a.m. Voice of mother calling full name. Out of state. Unheard in Nevada. J. Wet fur smell. Shape outside curtain. Tall. Motionless. Diner. Dawn older. Sharp eyes. Listened. Audio clip played. Dawn. That's my voice. Told us not to go. Boring explanation. Person. Other explanation. Something there longer. Mimicking voices. Mason. Why steal SD card? Dawn. To make real. Doesn't like witnesses. J. What do we do? Dawn. Stay out. People disappear here. Mining. Stages. Prospectors. Government experiments. Old-timers. Desert has places where calling for help answers you. Drive south. Nevada light normal. Mountains, mountains. Basins, basins. Evidence doesn't smooth. Tracks. Audio. Missing SD card. Voices mimicking names and tones. Could it be person? Yes, skilled, cruel. Covers some events, not all. Back in Las Vegas, Ridge camera SD card loaded. Photos analyzed. Wind triggers, distant deer. Last 3:06 a.m. photo, pale shape at frame edge. Lower frame, 3 small points of light, reflections, spaced like eyes. Zoomed pixels broke. Low to ground watcher, taller near it. Throat sore from tension. Slow corrosion of assumption, world misbehaves. I haven't returned to that basin. Nevada work elsewhere. Avoid deep basins. Don't call at night. Don't answer voices. Keep my name private. Sometimes on empty highway, faint wet fur smell in clean air. Sometimes half awake, hear my own voice, get up. Don't know if it followed. Skinwalker or not, unknown. Oldest survival rule, silence. Night isn't empty. Sometimes it speaks like someone you trust.
All right, everyone, that wraps up today's story. Huge shout out to all of you for rocking with me and showing so much love on the channel lately. You guys are the real ones, seriously. If this story gave you the chills and you're vibing with this kind of nightmare fuel, do me a solid. Smash that like button and hit subscribe so you never miss a drop. It really helps the channel grow and keeps these stories coming. I've got some even crazier encounters lined up for next week, so stay tuned. Until then, stay safe out there, keep your eyes on the tree line, and peace out.